Have you thought this through?
No way will that work.
Are you sure? Is there any money in that?
You'll never make any money doing that. How are you going to pay the mortgage? Just get a job.
You're going to try to sell that? Why can't you be normal like everybody else?
Oh, boy. Were your parents morons too?
The savvy entrepreneur to the rescue.
Congratulations. That really turned out well.
Really good job.
I'm getting ready. I'm surprised.
You know, I wish I thought of that.
I never thought of you one bit. How did you do that?
I'm so glad you're pursuing your dreams. I wish I had the courage to follow my dreams.
Good morning, all you entrepreneurs and small business people. You are listening to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show. I'm Doris Nagel, your host for the next hour. The show has two goals: to share information and resources. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I had a lot of crash and burn ventures. I've made a lot of mistakes. And if I can help one of you out there not make some of the mistakes I've made or that I've seen clients and friends make, well, then I've been successful. The second goal is to inspire. I've found being an entrepreneur confusing, often lonely. You have no idea if you're on the right track or not, or where to turn for good advice. So the show has guests every week who share their stories and advice to help with both of those goals. And this week's guest is Renee. She is the founder and owner of eCourtReporters, and she joins me this week to share her journey as an entrepreneur. So Karen, thanks so much for being with me today. Welcome to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show.
Thank you, Doris, for having me. I'm very pleased to be here today.
I am delighted you are here. So first, just tell my listeners a little bit about you. What's your background? What should people know about you and what makes you tick?
Well, certainly. So my name is Renee, and I am CEO of eCourtReporters, and I am a working court reporter. So I've been with the court reporting industry since 2004, and that's actually what sparked my need and want to create eCourtReporters, which I agree with you when you say there's many bumps to go through in creating a new business, and we've certainly been through a few. But I am a court reporter myself. I'm fascinated by the law, have been since way back when, and I'm excited to get going farther into what we can do for helping law firms locate court reporters, because that is a really difficult and it's a hard thing in the industry right now. We struggle finding certified court reporters across the United States. But my history is bringing me here is in the fact that I myself, owning a court reporting agency, found that very difficult. So we set out to create our own little mission of finding and locating court reporters throughout the United States. A little bit about myself personally. I am a Harley-Davidson rider, along with my co-founder of eCourtReporters is also a Harley-Davidson rider. That's how we met. So that's a little personal tidbit of information.
I saw the picture on your website, and that looked like fun. And I was just thinking of the great analogies of the Harley, off-roading maybe a little bit with the Harley hitting the bumps, and then the straight areas where you can just really, rev the engine up and just fly. It's a little bit like running a startup business where,
It's interesting you say that, because Judy and I, my co-founder and I, actually met. That was how we met as friends originally, was through the love of riding Harley Davidsons. And we are two strong, independent women that, we're not happy with riding on the back of our significant others' Harley Davidsons. We had to drive our own. We started off as friends in Harley ridership that ended up blooming into a beautiful relationship with owning a business together. But one of the things that Judy kind of coined on our business is that we run our business like we ride our motorcycles, which is there is no reverse. And that really quite well.
Yes. And there are some bumps along the way, and you want to hang on tight so you don't go bumping off and flying off into the great beyond.
Right.
It's interesting that you owned a court reporter agency. Talk to listeners a little bit about the court reporter business. I always thought that court reporters worked for the courthouse. They just kind of tootle in, they follow the judge and the bailiff. Is that not how court reporters don't work for the court?
Well, you're not alone in thinking that, and not everyone tends to be familiar with the courthouse court reporter, because that is what you see on TV. It's what we see, in drama shows, right? That's what we know.
Judge Judy, I see it. I see it.
Perfect example. Judge Judy she has her own court reporter. And she's a real court reporter, too. I should note that. I actually know her in the field, not personally, but I know her through the connections that we have. She's a live certified court reporter. So
that's very cool.
That's not reenactment for TV purposes. She is a live certified court reporter.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but there's a whole another world of court reporting business that happens for freelance court reporters that cover depositions and hearings, arbitrations that are held outside of the courthouse. And that's the part of the business that not many know of, unless, and unfortunately, if they've been involved in a lawsuit. So I'll give you an example. If you were in a car accident and there were 5 witnesses to your car accident, long before that, and then a lawsuit ensues, like who's at fault? Who's at fault for this car accident? Long before that car accident lawsuit gets to the courthouse, you have to, or your attorney has to find out who knows what your injuries are, what the lawsuit, what kind of dollar amount were the injuries, what damage to the car, damage to you. And those, in order to find that information out, it's sworn testimony by those people that saw, witnessed, or were involved in the car accident. So each one of those people, your lawyer will call for a deposition. And in that deposition is usually the opposing counsel, in other words, the other person that's being sued or that's involved in lawsuit, yourself, or perhaps your attorney, I should say your attorney, the other attorney, and then whoever is being deposed. And the only other person that's in the room is a certified court reporter. And what the key is that certified court reporter has to be not hired by either attorney, in other words, an employee of either attorney. They have to be a third-party unbiased person, so that they don't have any bias in the case and that they don't slant, let's say, the transcript to one side or the other.
No spinning by court reporter.
Correct. Yeah. And that's where it's hard to find, that we don't just advertise our business out there. And that's where the difficulty of locating those court reporters comes in. So it's a world of, unless you've been involved in a lawsuit, that many aren't aware of.
So do the 2 lawyers have to agree on the court reporter, or just whoever called the deposition?
Yeah, usually the person that calls the deposition hires a freelancer out in the market. This has only happened to me once that I can recall quickly. When we arrive at the proceeding, if by chance I know the person being deposed personally, that did happen to me once, where I actually knew the person that was being deposed, not personally, but I knew the person's father. I actually had to disclose that to both attorneys and say, hey, just so you know, I was unaware until I walked in the room that I do know this person's father. And then the attorneys can either agree or disagree to let me carry on with the proceeding. If they agree, in that case they did, then I'm still the certified court reporter for that event. If I was too close to that person and they said, you know what, we don't feel comfortable that you're unbiased, then they'll bring somebody else in.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, all the behind the scenes stuff in a lawsuit. So for court reporters, how much of court reporters' work is the in courtroom stuff versus the out of courtroom things that you mentioned?
I would say it's probably 50-50, meaning, for every court trial that you see, just about every person, if not every person that goes on the witness stand has been deposed prior to getting to the trial. And the reason they are is because the opposing attorney, let's say you bring a witness that saw your accident and they're going to go up on the stand and they're going to say some things. Well, the opposing attorney wants to know what they're going to say, as does your attorney is going to want to know what they're going to say too. They don't want to be surprised at trial with something. So they already have been deposed. So however many people are witnesses at any given trial already have been deposed outside of the courthouse prior to.
You know, a friend of mine who's a longtime litigator said his rule of thumb is never, ever ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's it's perfect information and why there's the depositions beforehand. So those attorneys know what they're going to ask. It's also how they impeach a person, and meaning they'll catch them in a lie. So, they'll ask a question that they know the answer to, and then let's say that person says another answer. And then they'll refer back to the transcript in the deposition held, 6 months ago and say, back on such and such date when I asked you that question,
yes.
Answer,
Yeah,
So
Karen, may I draw your attention to this document here from the court reporter from our deposition of such and such? Does it not or not say, does it or does it not say, blah, blah, blah?
Exactly. Isn't it true? They always get into those. Isn't it true?
Yeah.
So that's where those all come from.
Interesting. Well, so why is it so hard to find court reporters? It seems like it would be great work. I mean, is it the training? Is it the pay? I mean, why is it so hard to find good court reporters?
It's a very lucrative business. It's a very lucrative profession. It's a fascinating profession. You learn something new every day, or you are involved in something new every day. Everything from today might be a case about a murder and the witness to the murder, and tomorrow might be two neighbors fighting about a fence in the backyard. So every day is different. Mm-hmm. The finances are phenomenal. The problem comes in is if we step back a little bit, colleges like numbers, right? Colleges like to see we have, a 98% graduation rate, and we placed 97% in, their profession. The problem with court reporting is it's not an easy, it's just not easy to get to the certification process. So there's a lot of dropout. There's a lot of, not making it through the college courses. And unfortunately, what's happened is there's a lot of college courts or a lot of colleges that have taken the curriculum out of their, their list because it makes it look bad on the college when we have, we only graduate 70% out of this course. And so the course gets looked down upon. So unfortunately, a lot of colleges have closed over the years. Good news is since, and partly this has to do with COVID, remote colleges have popped up to fill the void of where, again, a great profession is. So it's really, it's not an easy course to finish. Once you get that course finished, oh my gosh, it's a phenomenal profession. But really, it comes down to the numbers. And then it also comes down to the fact that court reporters, like I said, they don't advertise themselves per se. It's not like with billboards saying, hey, here's a court reporter, come and find my services.
No, I don't believe I've ever seen a billboard like that, nor an ad on TV. Your friendly bankruptcy specialized court reporter. I don't see that. Well, let's go back to eCourtReporters. So you were running, you had an agency where you helped place a number of these independent court reporters, but then you decided to start eCourtReporters. What was the idea behind that, and what prompted you to pivot?
So I actually have to give credit to my older brother, which I always hate doing, once again.
I hear you. I know that.
Yeah, So my brother was traveling to California to see his children, and he's old school. At the time, he had a flip phone, and he was just transitioning over to a smartphone. And this is not that many years ago. This is just how, old school he was. He hung on to the phone forever. But he got
Don't fix what's not broken.
Right? So he had a smartphone, and he came back from California, and I picked him up from the airport and had lunch with him. And during lunch, he was showing me how he had ordered an Uber out in California. And he was like, oh man, I just went to my smartphone and I just click, click, click. And, look you can watch the car come and you can pick whatever car you want. And he was just acting all smug about the fact that he was able to order an Uber. And I had really light bulb moments sitting there thinking, I believe I voiced it. I said, boy, I wish I could find certified court reporters that easy.
Uber a court reporter, right?
Right. And I went home that night. That was lunchtime. I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. I literally could not sleep. And the next morning I said, I just have to do something for this. Why can't we find court reporters that easy? Why can't I go, I as a court reporting firm had trouble finding overflow jobs or filling overflow jobs. I had my own court reporters that would fill, and then they would get, can only have so many bodies to fill so many positions. And then I'd have all these other jobs that I'd be scrambling and calling and emailing and texting. And it was just a nightmare. And then I thought, why can't I find a court reporter that easy? So it literally was the beginning of eCourtReporters. And I will tell you that our first rendition, I went right to work. I literally couldn't sleep that night. The next morning, I just started, looking for ways to build a website, which I knew nothing about, really nothing about. And I can tell you the biggest bump in the road is my first rendition of a website was over promised and under delivered, partly because I didn't know what I was looking for, partly because I didn't know what to ask for. Very quickly that what was being developed was not going to work for the type of platform that we needed. We're dealing with confidentiality. We're dealing with some sensitive information. And a year later, so that was in 2017, a year later, 2018, I went back to the drawing board and created a custom site, which has now become eCourtReporters, which is an amazing site, secure, exactly what we needed. It was custom built for our needs. So that's a little bit of the history of how we got to where we are. And I will tell you, summarize that up with, if you'd asked me as little as 5 years ago if I'd be the owner of a technology company, the answer would be absolutely not. And yet here I am. So,
it's interesting you say that because there are a lot of people who say Uber is really not a rideshare company, it's a technology company, because the platform that they have built is so slick and so much thought and work went into it, and probably money to develop it and refine it. It's essentially a technology company. And I think what you're saying is that to be the Uber of court reporters requires a significant investment in technology. I suspect you are far from alone in terms of, in fact, I just chatted with another entrepreneur just a couple days ago, and he had the same issue. He had an idea. He wasn't quite sure what he wanted it to do. And it was so clear very quickly that the underpinning, the technology, the behind the scenes of his website, he outgrew it very quickly to the point where, just like you, almost the investment he made, he had to very quickly just say, it's not going to cut it. It's not what my customers want. It's not what we want. Got to start over again. So just a word to entrepreneurs out there. There are so many business models that really are going to depend on great technology. And you may be able to find something off the shelf. You may be a great programmer. You may be lucky and have a buddy or a good friend or a family member who is whiz bang at designing this kind of stuff. But boy, oh boy, you may want to think long and hard about what you really want and the money you might need to have to be able to develop and refine it, right?
Exactly. It still hurts to this day. I mean, that was a couple of years ago and it still hurts at just how difficult, and it partly was my own fault, right? Because I came up with this idea based on why can't I find court reporters that easy, to realizing that, it requires technology that I knew nothing about. So I didn't know how to go about asking for what I needed. I knew what I wanted it to be when it was done. I had no idea how to get there. And what was not going to work for us was a plug and play type thing. In other words, take all these different things and just kind of plug them in and make it work. That was not going to work at all for us.
I think a lot of people just really underestimate
Yeah.
how challenging it is and how often you need to update it and patch it, oftentimes with things that go on. So, find a really good developer. It's interesting. You're talking about your model, the Uber of court reporting. So how do you get people to sign up to your site? How do you get court reporters to sign up, and how do you make sure that they're good? Because you're standing really behind them. Your name and reputation is on the line.
Great question. Yeah. So we do a lot of social media. We are heavily into the social media world, which I've also learned to be good at after a while, which I didn't do a lot of before. But we do a lot of social media. We do weekly emails. We do blogs. But to answer your question on, standing behind people, that's a great point, because everybody on our site, and this goes through on the other side, which is the attorneys searching for court reporters too, is that we vet everybody before they can gain access. In other words, if you're a court reporter, we cover all 50 states, and I can
Wow, that's amazing.
And we have representation in all 50 states. We had a lone holdout in North Dakota for a while, and we actually have all 50 states now. So that's impressive for us.
It is.
Yeah, it was a big milestone for us. But we vet everybody that applies to be it's a free application. We charge them nothing to list their profiles, but they must be a certified court reporter on the service provider end, and they must be an actual law firm on the other end. In other words, an example we had not too long ago of an old boyfriend was looking for a court reporter, and he wanted to look through our database and find that court reporter. I was like, no, that's not what the database is for. So we actually vet the law firms just like we do the court reporters. And how that works is almost every state has an association, a court reporting association attached to their state, because each state has different rules and regulations. And then there's also national agency or national associations that have go through the process of certifying court reporters. So we utilize those associations. And on the court or the law firm side, then we also go into, each lawyer has usually a law firm or a lawyer number that they're assigned when they're in good standing with their state. We also utilize social media. If somebody says, well, I'm an attorney, the first thing we do is, well, are they attorney on LinkedIn, and what's their law firm and state association and what's their, bar association that they're associated with. So there's a number of, some people can be vetted very quickly, and then other ones may take us a little longer, but each person goes through that process before they are, given authority to go in and use the emails and passwords and the sign-in processes that they get credentials to go to utilize the system.
Well, that's interesting. So it's free for court reporters to sign up, and I'm guessing as you become more well-known, you're getting more and more court reporters to sign up. How is it monetized if it's free for them? I mean, it's good that it's free because obviously they're more likely to sign up. But how do you monetize the model?
Yeah, so what we do is we're actually free for law firms too. They're our ultimate customers. So we actually do not charge the law firms to register and go in and search our database. And how we make money is our model is after the job is complete, we retain a percentage of the job assignment. So what that does is nobody has to worry about anything coming out of your pay. You don't pay monthly, nothing until you're actually given a job. And job is what there's many agencies that work as a third party booking agency now that can take up to 50% of the court reporter's pay. That's how many people are booked today or have been booked in the past.
Wow.
Yeah, by going direct, by going direct by attorney to court reporter through our system, what we've done is eliminate that third party booking agency. And now the court reporter can make up to 95% of their pay or their value. So the difference is phenomenal. And then because it doesn't cost you anything to list your services, if you never got a job, at the very least, you got free advertising of your bar and your certification. So we don't take anything out of anybody's pocket until we've come through and made a connection and you've actually gotten work.
Well, so is there a system kind of like, I'm familiar with Upwork, where you can do find freelance graphic designers or somebody to update your logo or something. And, it tracks it. It'll say, Doris Nagel has completed 37 projects and her average rating is 3.9 stars. Is there a system kind of like that too, where you?
There is great question. So what we do is after the job is complete and everybody's, the law firm has their transcript and the court reporter has done the job, then there's a rating. So the law firm gets an instant notification that, hey, your court reporter did everything that we hope she did everything that she or he did everything that she or he was asked to do. Please rate your service. So they get rated from, did they arrive on time? Did they do the transcript nicely? Did you have good communication? They can rate from anything, a 5-star rating. And that shows up on the profiles then of the court reporter for the next time they get booked or the next law firm that's searching for somebody that, they need service and they can choose, the law firm can choose, maybe they choose by 5 stars, maybe they choose by price, maybe they choose by certifications. And
or I'm guessing even expertise.
Yep.
I think the technology, some of the terms that are used in some of these lawsuits, you read about them and you can barely even understand what they're talking about. There's so much jargon.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because our court reporters can actually put in their profile what their preference is, meaning if they are, let's say they're really good or really enjoy or have some history in medical profession, maybe they just really like medical malpractice, signify that on their profile. And let's say somebody else who hates medical terminology, because there's a lot of terminology in medical, they would not put that on their profile. Now, when an attorney goes in and searches and says, hey, I'm going to be deposing a doctor, they're going to look to those medical. We're going to sync them up to the court reporters that do the medical and that are efficient and are 5-star ratings in the medical versus those that just say, you know what, I have no interest at all in doing medical, so I'm not even putting that on my profile. So it eliminates the back and forth of, I need a court reporter next Tuesday at 3:00. And the court reporter says, oh, yeah, I'm available. I can cover it. And then just, well, this is a doctor. Oh, no, I ain't doing that.
Oops, never mind.
Right? You've taken away all that. And you can also, then the law firm can select the best suited court reporter for the proceeding at hand. So that's eliminated a lot of back and forth and a lot of frustration on both ends. It doesn't waste anybody's time. You get exactly the court reporter that you need for the proceeding.
Well, that's very cool. How has the business grown since you started it? Are there more and more court reporters that have joined, more law firms that use it? Talk about that.
Yeah, we've grown tremendously. I did state that we are in all 50 states now, so that was a big milestone. I will say that we don't have a big presence in North Dakota, and the reason being it's population equals litigation. So our biggest presence is actually in places like California, Florida, New York. We do very well here in the Midwest because we started here. But Texas is another big one. So those states, just based on population, because, you're going to have more car accidents where there's more people and less car accidents where there's less people. So we do really well in the heavy populated states. We are on both sides. I can tell you that court reporters more and more come to us and we offer a lot of different variables for the court reporter. So I just talked to a gal today that is retiring from working in the courthouse, but she doesn't want to quit working court reporting altogether. And so system allows her to do is to make herself available when she does want to work. So our system is based on a live calendar availability. So in her case, we had a nice conversation today about, she says, well, I don't want to work every day, but I don't, maybe this week I want to work 2 days and maybe next week I don't want to work at all. Well, what she can eCourt Reporters is make herself available only on the days that she wants to work. So in that respect, those kind of things have really made our business explode. And I'll give you another example of that same kind of feed is we have court reporters that travel, and perhaps, we have snowbirds, say in the Midwest, that go to Florida for the wintertime. And those court reporters can actually make themselves available in Florida, that state, providing they're certified, and in Wisconsin, because they, or Chicago or Illinois, wherever they're from, they can make themselves available in multiple states. And the reason being is the remote world, and we're all familiar with the remote world these days and video conferencing. That has opened up a whole new door for court reporters that didn't exist pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, we were primarily in person for any type of deposition hearing.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of that was in person, but then the emergency orders went into place in most states, if not all, during COVID. And what that did is opened up the ability for these remote conferences, remote video conferences, that turned out to be just a dynamic change, a real game changer in the legal industry, not just for the court reporters, but also for the attorneys. So if you can imagine, pre-COVID, if we had a case here, let's say the witness was in Wisconsin, but the accident happened in California, and the attorney from California needs to, come to Wisconsin to depose somebody. So they're going to fly in and they're going to spend 2 or 3 nights in a hotel, and they're going to, for a 4-hour deposition and spend all this money. Today, that attorney stays in California. The witness is here in Wisconsin. The court reporter is remote, and everybody's saving all that time of, being on the road and costs in overnight stays.
Well, that's kind of interesting, though, if they're licensed by state. I mean, does the court reporter have to be a Wisconsin
so the court
license or California, or now it starts to not matter so much?
Great question. So the court reporter has to be with the state that the deponent is in. So Wisconsin, and the reason being, I'll use myself as an example. I have to be able to swear in the witness per the notary rules of Wisconsin, because that's what I'm licensed for. I am not licensed in the state of California. So if that same scenario played out and the witness was in California, I, in Wisconsin, cannot take that case as a court reporter. But what's helped us, or what's grown our business, is the fact that court reporters on eCourt Reporters can actually make themselves available in multiple states, right? So if I went and got my California license, I could cover California jobs as well. And more court reporters are finding that, with an extra test, with an extra certification in another state, you've opened yourself up for a whole bunch more jobs.
Yeah. Especially with things being virtual. It's interesting you alluded to that. And I actually had as a guest a lawyer who's running for judge in Cook County, and she was talking about how COVID has changed the court proceedings, and it was her thought that probably going forward there will be a lot of virtual hearings. There will. Is that your sense as well?
Yeah, every indication is the attorneys are more productive. The court reporters are more productive. I mean, you've opened up so much more time. And honestly, the deponents, it makes their lives easier too. If you had to be deposed for an hour or 2 hours out of your day and 4 or 5 hours of travel time to get to the lawyer's office for that, now you don't have to do that. You've opened up 4 hours or 5 hours of your day that you don't have to travel to the attorney's office for that deposition. You can stay home and do it right from your home computer. You actually end up with more engagement from the deponents, more engagement from the people involved in lawsuits, because otherwise it can be an inconvenience, right? hard to schedule. People have jobs, they're working, they can't go and stop everything for a deposition. We did one not too long ago where literally the deposition was held during lunch hour. I mean, they knew the deposition was going to be short. They only had a few questions. So you can literally take your lunch hour. You don't take any other time off work. The guy was sitting in his car on his phone. I mean, that would be.
That's not Judge Judy. That's not my picture.
Right?
But it's good that the court systems and the practice of law is flexible enough to evolve. So, and that sounds like that's going to be a good thing for your business going forward. It probably already has.
Right. Yeah, it's great for our business. It's been a real game changer, like I said, and for growth of our business, that remote aspect. We actually didn't even have that piece within our original design of eCourtReporters. The remote option wasn't there because it wasn't as big of, it wasn't prevalent. And when COVID hit, we had to pivot, or we did pivot, and added that service in, and it changed everything, and it has continued to change everything for eCourtReporters for that very reason.
That's great. I'm sure, though, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns as you've built your business. Talk about some of the challenges, maybe especially early on. You touched on the technology, but I bet that wasn't the only bump in the road.
So the technology was the big one, but yes, you're right. That was not the only one. And it's still, even to this day, I mean, there's certainly nothing runs smoothly, right? Technology is beautiful when it works. It's not always when it doesn't. And I think our biggest pain point today is just the access to law firms, right? Law firms are kind of, they don't want to be bothered with emails. They don't want to be bothered with phone calls. You can get the secretary or you have to get past the gatekeeper to talk to the attorney that's going to use our system. So that's one of the pain points that we feel today, even, is getting through to the attorney themselves.
That's interesting, because when they need a court reporter, they need one. So
yeah, when they need a court reporter, they do. We need to let them know there's a better way. That's the key. So right now, they can find a court reporter by going through those agencies that will take up to 50% of the court reporter's pay. And not only do they take 50% of the court reporter's pay, or up to, but they can also upcharge the law firm. And some lawyers don't even know that, number one. And some lawyers, when you get into big law firms, the lawyer may never see the bill.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
Or they just pass it on to the client and they don't care. So
exactly.
That's not good either.
No, it's not. And that's what we like to let them, that's what we try to get past, or let them know about our system, is that you can compare whether it's you're paying the bill or whether it's, somebody else writing the check. At the end of the day, it's your client. We focus heavily on client-centered law firms for that reason. So when your client says, how much is that going to cost? You can actually look at eCourtReporters and know exactly what it's going to cost you, which court reporter is going to be the best for your services, for your case, whatever. You don't get that service when you're hiring through a third party. You're going to get somebody and you're going to get charged. And the difference is the client-centered law firms will pay attention and say, well, I want, a good price. I want the best of the best. I want the ones that, whatever the case may be, I want that medical proficiency, whatever it is, they can select. But we have to get to the law firms to let them know that there's a better way out there. And that, going back to the example I gave earlier about law firms wasting time, paralegals are really the hard work behind the law firms. Their frustrations is the example I gave earlier. I need a court reporter. Okay, we have a court reporter for you. And then, well, it's going to be a doctor. Well, no, we don't have a court reporter for you. On to the next. And so again, emails, phone calls, text messages, I've seen social media blast looking for court reporter services. And what we've done is created a way for law firms to quickly and easily search a free database of vetted, certified court reporters throughout the United States. And it's literally in a matter of 5 minutes, they can book the best of the best for their needs. And that's the message we have to get out. And we don't always have that open door to get that message through, because they're just kind of like, well, I'm not paying the bill and I need a court reporter, and whoever it is. And we need to get our message out that there's a better way.
That's interesting. It's funny you mentioned client-centric law firms. Do you find that big law firms are more likely to use your service, or is it smaller law firms?
The smaller solo firms definitely see big value in what we do. And then, it really depends on the lawyer, because some lawyers are more attuned to their clients and some just aren't. We like to focus on the client-centered because at the end of the day, lawsuits change people's lives, and you don't want to be the lawyer. I wouldn't want the lawyer that just decides that, well, hey, this is a cash cow case and I'm going to make lots of money because I'm going to depose lots of people and it's going to cost all this money. I want the lawyer that's going to say, all right, we're going to get you, this is going to change your life forever, whatever the results of this lawsuit are, and we're going to get you the best value leading up to the lawsuit. So I think as technology and the internet has allowed clients the same information that they didn't have before either, that they wouldn't know the difference, myself included. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have known the difference of an attorney that was client-centric versus an attorney that was big law that didn't care about just, billable hours.
Right.
So now it's more and more out there, and clients can be a little more choosy. So just as selective as the client is in selecting the perfect attorney for their case, we created a way for law firms to be just as, as interested and aware of the court reporter and the service that you're getting for your client. Just like your client selected you, you need to select that court reporter the same way and have the same interest in mind at heart.
I'm thinking about how you found funding for the business, because you had to make a fairly substantial technology investment in order to start getting a lot of the revenue to be generated. So how did you find funding for this business?
Well, you're going back to that hurtful part again.
I'm sorry. I think people relate to the pain points because there's plenty of pain for most of us.
Yeah, when I had that light bulb moment sitting across from the dinner table of my brother, I had no idea how much technology would cost. And we are bootstrapped. So my co-founder and I, Judy Gerulat, and myself have primarily bootstrapped our business. We do have one investor, and I will tell you, hopefully Eric's not listening to this, but I will tell you, we did a lot of pitching. We were involved in G-Beta, Generator, great startup companies for people that are looking to start a business. I encourage anybody to look.
Great organization based out of Madison, but expanding to a city near you. Check them out if you're interested in a wonderful incubator system.
We learned a lot from them. We were in the spring cohort in 2019, learned a bunch. And I can tell you that that's when we started pitching. Up until then, we primarily still are bootstrapped. But at that point, we started pitching to investors, and we had a lot of no's, many no's, and it kind of got to be almost routine. It's like, oh, we're going to pitch again. We're going to pitch again. We'll pitch again. And then I had
like Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah, I just got to be, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do another one. And then it was strange because I had, I'm a big Packers fan, and I had a interested investor out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, that wanted to meet with me. And it was a Thursday night, and I said, sure, I'll, jump on a call with them. And it was also a Packer Thursday night game. And I remember distinctly, and I actually had apologized to him. And Eric, forgive me, I know he's heard the story, and I feel bad when I have to say it, but I just confess that I spent a lot of talking to him and pitching my business and looking over the top of my computer at the Packer game. And I apologized to him. I actually said to him, I apologize, but I said, the Packers are playing, and, I felt really bad, but at the same time, really wanted to watch the Packer game. And strangely, it was the easiest money that we got to invest in our company. And I tell that story only because I think when it came to pitching, for the longest time, it was nerve-wracking. It was frustrating. It was, it was all the things that you feel like, I've got this great business, but I can't seem to get anybody interested. But I think what I was missing when I was pitching before that evening pitch to the person that actually ended up investing in us was that I was never really myself. I just always, this is what you got to have. This is why. And this. And then I'm starting to watch the Packer game, and I'm just talking about my business. And I think Eric saw not just a great business, but he also saw the personality behind the business. And
Real person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm certainly glad you took that away as the moral of the story and not the advice that people need to become Packers fans in order to get the
Bears fan.
funding.
Yeah, it helped. I'm telling you, it helped. No, but I think, the pitching world, the investment world or funding is very difficult for founders. And we certainly learned that we still pitch. It's still difficult. It doesn't come easy, and rightfully so. Investors are very, savvy of their money, as they should be. And so.
Well, and unfortunately, it's tough for women-owned businesses. I saw a statistic that less than 3% of venture capital money goes to women-owned businesses. And that number actually has been declining, which is really sad. That was venture capital money. I don't know what the numbers are, right, for angel funding or family offices or things like that, but my guess is it's quite low. Have you seen obstacles in particular for women-owned businesses? Is it the way we present? Is it the fact that we just don't come up with the same kind of business models? What do you attribute that to?
If I were to summarize it, I would say that for me, it's the fact that I am not strong in saying my value. So, I just think it comes easier for men to say, hey, I have this company and it's worth $2 million. And then I come along and I say, I have this company and I think it's worth about, maybe 200. The presentation is a lot different. And I think we as women tend to value ourselves. That's what I would summarize it with. I would blame myself in that I don't always come off as strong and confident as a man. And millions of dollars, tens of 20s millions of dollars where men have no problem asking for, and women, I think, have struggled more in asking for it. So that's on a quick, thought process. I believe that's one problem. There's probably many more. That's one I think I find myself locked into, that I always devalue our business, not necessarily because I don't think it's a great business, because I know it is, and I know it has value, and I know it can go, I've seen the numbers, I know what it can do, and I know where it's going and all those things, but I have a hard time asking somebody else to understand and see that same value that I see with that same strength, where I think men in general have absolutely no problem not only asking, but asking for more, much more than maybe what the business is worth, and getting it.
Yeah, there's certainly. I was reading a study not too long ago that said unqualified men are like 3 or 4 times more likely to apply for a job they're clearly not qualified for than a woman would be. Yeah. I find that fascinating. It's just it's a very interesting dynamic. Well, looking back on your journey, what advice would you give your younger self? Or what might you have done differently?
Oh, gosh, what might I have done differently? I would have brought in a partner way sooner. I brought my partner in. Judy came in with me as a partner about 1.5 years after I made the terrible mistake of the overpromise, underdeveloped website. I would have slowed down and I would have looked at the development of what I would have asked better questions at the beginning. I think that, it's always, hindsight is always easy, right? But I know looking back at it today, I would have done more due diligence on the company I was hiring to build our website. I just didn't know. And I think I would have liked to have spent more time learning a little bit more behind the scenes. I jumped in with both feet ready to go. And because I knew what I needed, I knew what it had to be, and I knew it was a great opportunity, and it was time, and everything was falling into place. But I think if I could do it again, I would have done more due diligence at the beginning stages. I don't know. And I say that, and looking back, if I was aware of all that I know now, I may not have done it. I may not have done it had I known it was going to cause as much, had I known the headache, of how many times the technology fails, of how much time, how many times we had to fix things. And I mean, every day it's not we're fixing things or we're tweaking, we're forever, well, let's do this, let's do it this way. And it's just a constant many times is not running 100% the way we like it. We always want to tweak things. We always want to move things. And then every time we move something, then we have to move something else. And it's a constant thing. So if I'd have known that, maybe, when I first started, maybe I would have scared me off. So when I tell my younger self, what would you do different? If I had that opportunity to be aware of what I was in for, I'd have gone forward. So looking back at it now, I'm glad and I'm extremely pleased I did what I did. But it certainly didn't come easy, and it didn't go, smoothly without bumps along the way. But if I had to, I don't think I would change it other than just knowing a little bit more about technology.
I'll tell you from personal experience, I'm a SCORE, or have been a SCORE mentor, SCORE being the volunteer arm of the Small Business Association that provides free counseling to startup people. And I can't tell you the number of people I chatted with who said they wanted to start a business, but spent so much time noodling and thinking they never did anything. They were the most frustrating clients. So, maybe the lesson, you can't overthink things if you're sure you've really got a great idea, but, expect that it may not be the smoothest of rides, and you'll just figure it out as you go.
There's definitely something to be said for tenacity. I mean, you have to stick with it. For as much as frustration sets in, the wins are so much more rewarding and so much more. Sometimes I think, we should be farther along. We should be doing this. We should be doing that. But then when I look back, a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm like, wow, look at how far we've come.
Exactly. The glass is half full, not half empty.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, where do you see eCourtReporters headed? I mean, where's it going to be maybe in 3 years if you fulfill your vision for the company?
Sure. So right now we started with court reporters and legal videographers, which we didn't even get a chance to touch on, but they are part of the deposition process too at times. So those two are our primary service providers today. But we have expansion plans of process servers, of interpreters. I mean, there's much more that goes into a deposition than the court reporter when you have somebody that doesn't speak English, or somebody that, needs an interpreter, or needs the videographer comes in when you have testimony in print in black and white, it doesn't show the mannerisms. In a videographer.
Oh, that's for sure. I've actually read a transcript at some point for something, and it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on because you lack all the context.
Exactly. Now, if you put a videographer, a certified, and they have to be certified too, a certified legal videographer in that same room with the court reporter, now what you can do, or what your attorney can do, is put that black and white print up against a visual of that person saying those exact words. And you can see, shoulder shrugs, eye rolls, whatever mannerism is.
Ums and ahs and stutters that maybe get caught with the transcript.
And sarcasm, sarcasm doesn't come out in print, but it certainly comes out when you see somebody saying something. And those kind of things mean a lot in testimony when you need to use that witness for, whether it's for your side or against your side.
Yeah.
And then, so future, we have expansion plans of bringing on process servers. That's the people that are going to come to your door and say, hey, you've been subpoenaed for this deposition next Tuesday at 3:00. They're going to knock on your door and you've been served, as you may see on TV. So those are another process that goes in place of, preparing for trial and depositions. And then again, interpreters for if you have somebody that doesn't speak the language, and not just, there's a lot of languages, as we're a very diverse country. We have many languages, and different times need interpreters to depose people. So those services will also be in eCourtReporters, hopefully sooner versus later. That's part of our goals.
Fantastic. How should people reach you if they're interested in eCourtReporter services? Maybe they're a court reporter, maybe they have a friend who is, maybe they're a law firm, or maybe they're just interested in chatting with you about things entrepreneurial, like pitching or generator or just shooting the breeze.
I love to help entrepreneurs at any time. I'm actually a coach for Doyen, which is a women's entrepreneurship out of
You are.
Yeah, I love helping businesses grow. So yes, definitely reach out to me if you're an entrepreneur. Definitely reach out to me if you're a court reporter, and definitely reach out to me if you're an attorney. My direct email is letter K Renee. So it's letter K with last name Renee, RENEE at eCourtReporters.com. And I am primarily the court reporter perspective of the business. My co-founder, Judy Gerulat, which is JGERULAT at eCourtReporters.com. She is more the business brains of the company. She's all things business, way smarter than me. I bring in the court reporter's perspective and can answer all questions from the court reporters and service providers and even the attorneys, because I actually work in that world. Judy brings more of a business background to the company. We make a great partnership for that very reason. But you can reach either one of us at any time. Our phone number is 262-210-3915. Again, 262-210-3915. And you can always reach out to us at office at eCourt Reporters. That will eventually get to us if it's any question that we need to answer directly. That's office at eCourtReporters.com. And go to our website, eCourtReporters.com. Check it out. Even if you're not in the legal industry, you just want to see a really cool website, go check it out. It's dynamic. We have an app within the website that does all the scheduling. We've had some great videos put on there, some fun stuff. So anybody and everybody. I love to talk to anybody we can.
Karen, thank you so much for being with me today. It's really been a delight having you.
Thank you, Doris.
And thanks to all my listeners. You're the reason I do this. You can find more helpful information and resources on my consulting website, globalocityservices.com, as well as my new radio show website, thesavvyentrepreneur.org. You'll find lots of tools, podcasts, and other resources that are free for entrepreneurs and small business people. My door is always open for comments, questions, or suggestions. Email me at dnagel, Nagel, at thesavvyentrepreneur.org. Now, be sure to join me again next Saturday, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. But until then, I'm Doris Nagel, wishing you happy entrepreneuring.